Well, Alabama didn't win the national championship, so no reason to sit around and try and enjoy that. Let's talk about next year when maybe Alabama can win the national championship.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA's radio network. Luke Robinson, that's me. Bama Online's Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. We'll talk about Game Time here in just a little bit. I want to thank you everydayers for being here every day, and thank you newbies for being here today. You guys are the best. Love you all so much. And shout out to my friend Paget, who may be listening to this via her husband who has it on and she's in the other room. She always says, I find it weird that like I can hear my husband listening to you in the shower. And I'm like, yeah, that is weird for all of us. Anyway.
Crowded in there.
We talked about some preseason rankings that had come out the other day, but we only had a few to choose from. Well, now a gazillion of them are out. And let me just tell you where Alabama falls in all these, as your main man over there, Charlie Potter, has put out an article on BLL.
He compiled them. He compilated them.
Yeah. Is it compilated? I guess.
No, it's not. I just made that word up. But see, I think made up words are cool when everyone clearly knows what you meant.
I think that's fair. I don't think, is heady a word? You know, people always say a heady player.
I think that's
I always wondered, I've never looked it up. Always physicality. I didn't know that I don't know if that's a real word. I just know we've accepted. But, you know, here's the thing. If you start to accept it as a real word, it is a word. I mean, ain't's a word, if you ask me.
One of my buddies has a real big head, and he always said he had a big head and always laughed when he did. And one time I bought him a hat as a gift, and he's like, I really appreciate you buying me this, but it seriously won't fit. I'm like, no, it's adjustable. And he's like, there's not a size. And this is a regularly sized person. It's a regularly sized dude. And he's like, it's not going to fit my head. So he does. He has a really big head. And that hat proved it. So my point is, that word heady, would you use it to describe him?
Heady means like smart and intuitive. But
yeah, it doesn't mean that you've got a big head like my buddy.
But I'll tell you who won't have a big head next year, and that's Alabama fans. Because we normally have big heads going into the season, but here is the compilation that has been compilated by Charlie Potter. On 3 has Alabama at 14, ESPN, Bama at 12, CBS 14, The Athletic at 14, Sports Illustrated at 8, Yahoo at 9, Pro Football Focus at 8, Sporting News at 8, Athlon at 11, and then here comes, I left the two polar opposites, the two bookends for last. USA Today has Bama at 3.
Wow.
Fox Sports has Bama at 16. 16. I mean, here's again, I don't know what we did to deserve such a lack of respect. I mean, I guess people were just itching to start disrespecting us because we have forced people to respect us for so long that they're like, I mean, I know a lot of Auburn friends, but I mean, that's just tradition. They're like, I can't wait till y'all fall off. And I kept saying, it's not happening. And like, we're ranked 17, and an Auburn buddy of mine today on the show said, hey, you can see the wheels coming off of this thing. I'm like, we went 9-4, which almost equals the number of wins. It takes y'all like 3 seasons to get that number of wins. Recently. And that's not crazy. And so I'm saying I can get the 12. I can get the 8. The 16 bothers me, and the 3 scares me because I feel like they're setting me up for a fall.
Well, the well-known sports writer Charlie didn't include it because he's not really he's kind of a one-man organization, but Brett McMurphy had Alabama at 23. 23 is where Brett McMurphy has Alabama.
Yeah, but he's a known Bama hate. I mean, Jimmy, he didn't even put us in his AP poll.
Yeah, no, we weren't even in his top 25 for whatever reason. We're definitely not his favorite, but you know, the ranking that surprises me the most is the USA Today that has Alabama at 3, because even a Bama homer such as myself is like, whoa, tap the brakes there, USA Today. That seems a little excessive. But, I'm with you. 16 seems really low. So much of this, I think, is factoring in what happened against Michigan at the end, which I agree was an absurd, terrible, disgraceful loss. But I'm not so sure it's an insight into what next year will look like for Alabama. I don't think so, but it could be. And for those that say the wheels are falling off, I disagree. I don't believe they are. And I think Alabama is going to have a very good season this upcoming fall. I do. But at the same time, I don't think someone that thinks the wheels are falling off is crazy, because obviously when the wheels do fall off, it's going to look a lot like last year, like was last year, the beginning of the wheels coming off. This year, I think answers those questions. I've said on the show numerous times, and I'll repeat again, I think 2024 was about Jaylen Milroe and 2025 is about Kalen DeBoer. And by that, I mean, we're going to find out this year if Kalen DeBoer is good enough to be the head coach at Alabama. We're going to find that out. That doesn't mean he's got to win it all. Doesn't mean he's got to make the semifinals. Might not even mean he has to make the playoff. Let's see what the season looks like. But if Alabama has a season that looks like last year and there's multiple losses to 6-6 type football teams, it's going to be fair. I'm not going to say I agree yet. I just want to see the season first. But it might be fair for people to say, I'm not sure he's going to last here very long.
No, I agree. And boy, that's a great way to put it. 24 was about Milroe and 25 will be about DeBoer. I think that is a great way to put it, because here's the thing. Just like you can't judge the bowl game or next year on the bowl game. By the way, if you keep wondering why I'm turning around, I got to show you. My dead gum dog. Zeta. There she is. She's wearing a sweater. And she eats her own skin. She itches so badly. We think she's allergic to grass. Having a dog allergic to grass is like having an orca allergic to salt water. It's like, this is bad. And Zeta, stop it. Every time I turn around, she is gnawing at her own skin. So Krista was
possible she's allergic to the sweater.
Is it mohair? Like Seinfeld. Anyway, I had to let y'all know why I keep turning around, and that's that. But
yeah, well, 24 was about Milroe to me in the sense that this team was going to go as far as Jaylen Milroe carried it. He could have carried the team all the way to the playoffs and the semifinals. Why do I say that? We've seen him do it before.
And Jimmy.
Or it could crash into a tree, and it sort of did.
Okay, yeah, that's where I was going, and Zeta distracted me. You better not be eating your skin. Okay, so what that bowl game was it was a defining moment of the Milroe legacy and has nothing to do with next year. Because, see, Milroe's not going to be here next year. So we're going to have a whole new scheme. We're going to have a whole new thing. And in fact, I'll say we'll have all new receivers. As good as Ryan Williams was and Jeremy Bernard was, we think they'll be better because they'll have a quarterback who can get them the ball more frequently and more easily.
More consistently,
more
maybe.
Consistently.
Yeah, I think might be the term. But again, we have to see it happen. And boy, spring practice is coming up so soon. It blew me away today when I looked at the calendar. I mean, I kind of keep in my head how long it is until spring practice starts. And then today is one of those days you wake up and it's like, wow, it's really soon. As a matter of fact, it might be as soon as 5 weeks from Monday. And boy, that's really quick. So I think Ty Simpson and the quarterbacks, Austin Mack and Keelan Russell too, but Ty Simpson in particular, he's going to be the starter day one, practice one, and we'll see how long that lasts. I think it'll last all the way through the season myself. But I'm certainly open to the possibility it will not. But let's see how Ty looks in the spring. I think people will read too much into early performances, but really what they need to look at is the spring scrimmages and A-Day being more significant than ever. Because I think A-Day could tell us so much about Ty, could tell us so much about the other quarterbacks. And how about this? Alabama's going to have the room. Will they recruit a portal quarterback after the spring? They did 2 years ago with Buckner, coming from Notre Dame. So I think based on how the spring goes, will they recruit a portal quarterback? My feeling is no. I think Ty is going to be impressive, and Austin Mack and Keelan Russell will show enough to where they go, hey, you know what? I think we could get away with playing these guys. But the way I see it, Ty will be impressive right off the bat this spring.
Time to talk some Game Time. Look, download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off that first purchase. I can't do it because I've used the app so frequently that I don't get the $20 off. But I don't need the $20 off because I'm saving so much money with Game Time all the time anyway, because it's always Game Time. So look, terms do apply, but go check out Game Time. Just go check out the app. Trust me on this. I'm going to the Alabama LSU game. Probably going to use Game Time for the tickets there unless I look into some other tickets. And I've already told people I'm going with, yeah, we're using Game Time. They're like, of course we're using Game Time. I use Game Time. I'm like, really? Do you use promo code LOCKEDONCollege? They go, yes. And then we had a whole conversation about that. Game Time is where you want to go. You can see where you're going to be sitting. The best price is guaranteed. I've used it for the World Series, Major League Baseball, college basketball, college football, pro football, NBA, everything. I've used it for everything. And you can too for concerts. Yep, you can use it for all that stuff. Go check out Game Time today. Thank me in just a little bit. So I brought up wide receivers like, I think Ryan Williams is going to be even better. Yep. I mean, I'm not really going out on a limb, but I think he's going to be a lot better next year than he was, and he was magnificent this year, especially by freshman standards. I think Jeremy Bernard's going to be better. I think Horton from Miami could be very good. But there were two guys who individually and on their own put out pictures of themselves practicing or at least doing some stuff with Alabama. Latsier Brooks and Derek Meadows. Brooks and Meadows. By the way, that's got to – man, if they ever get to be the 1-2 punch, Brooks and Meadows, if there's ever anything that sounded like either a really nice shampoo or a really cheap perfume. Right?
It sounds lovely.
It does. Just Brooks and Meadows, Meadows and Brooks.
Future is just Brooks and Meadows. What it did for me was those photos is such a stark reminder. We all are aware that 17 of our 21 freshmen enrolled in January, and they're actually going to school, going to class at Alabama. All these guys that we were so excited about just a few months ago as recruits, they're enrolled, they're going to class. They're also, even though Alabama's not officially practicing, they throw the football around quite a bit. The quarterbacks throw with the receivers, the linemen work. This is all work they do on their own, and it starts immediately. And again, none of it's official. But there's photos of them catching balls in the indoor practice facility, presumably from Ty or Keelan Russell or Austin Mack. And it's just such a wow, they're here. They're really here playing football. And those two guys in particular that we're talking about now, Latsier Brooks and Derek Meadows, I'm super high on both. It'll be fascinating to see if they can get in the first team rotation as soon as this fall. I think it's very possible for both. It's hard to imagine with Alabama's numbers and who Alabama has returning. It's hard to imagine that they can, but I think they're so gifted they might. They also are radically different players, which is great at the receiver position. You don't want a bunch of carbon copies. You want guys that excel at different things and bring different things to the table, much like a starting group on a basketball team. And Meadows and Brooks are like that. And I'm really excited about having those two around. Could be a noisy spring for both. But, hey, it's not just Ryan and Germ they have to worry about. It's Isaiah Horton. It's Cole Adams. It's Jaylen Hale. It's Jalen Mbakwe, who we don't talk about enough, who's going to be a wide receiver this spring. How about even, a young guy like Rico Scott that we're super high on? I think Rico is going to be a really good player at Alabama. So the depth at wide receiver to me looks great. It's not just Ryan and Germ. And having an offense, what that I think is going to feature getting the ball to more receivers than we did a year ago is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I like that. And look, I don't know that they're going to – I mean, I really do believe this. Call me crazy. I think Brooks is going to play a lot this year. I think Brooks will play a lot.
I can see it.
Meadows, I see taking a year, and I hope he doesn't transfer. That's because that's the way it is. By the way, the transfer portal has gotten extremely nutty, and shout out to Locked On Big 12 for apparently breaking this story. And I saw it on one of the Arkansas boards because I was looking at the Arkansas board because Boogie Fland is out for the year. And I was like, oh my God, Arkansas is about to fall apart. And I just want to see what they say. Well, they brought up about the Wisconsin player transferring to Miami and just bypassing the portal altogether. Didn't even go to the portal. Just said, I'm going to Miami. What are you going to do about it? And apparently then NCAA has come out and said, well, nothing. We're not going to do anything because we can't do anything. So my question is, why do you even need a portal? Just go where you're going to go. And how far away are we from, oh my God, I'm on a team that's 0-2 and I'm a great wide receiver, and that team X is calling me saying, hey, come be on this 2-0 team. We need another number one receiver. And you just leave in the middle of the season. And you go, that's crazy. That'll never happen. There's still school involved. Not really. Just barely.
I mean, a year ago, that concept would have been science fiction. I'd be saying you're crazy. That'll never happen. And I still believe it won't happen. But what? But you'd be even more crazy to rule out things like that anymore, because it is seemingly a sport without rules. Now it's a sport that's dominated by a transfer portal now that we're learning may not even be necessary, because the NCAA just clearly isn't going to fight anybody on anything anymore. And why is that? Because the last 1,000 times that they've spent millions of dollars fighting stuff in court, they just lose. They are the punching bag of the United States court system right now. And should they defend anyone for anything in court, they're simply going to lose. So it's like they don't even try anymore. They know how it's going to go. So they just get out of the way. And that's really unfortunate. It's an abdication of leadership. But at the same time, I mean, they're the Washington Generals of the U.S. court system.
They're the naked emperor, the emperor's new clothes. They're just butt naked out there trying to rule this kingdom. And everybody's like, what are we taking lessons from a naked king for?
You're not going to win in court if you're naked. And trust me, I used to be a lawyer, so I would know.
It depends. If Megan Fox was your lawyer, you might. All right, Jimmy, and I had one other thought, and I wrote it down because you know how I do. We got off on a tangent about this transfer portal thing. Question for anybody listening. Would Austin Mack to Derek Meadows be the tallest to tallest combo in quarterback to receiver in the country? I mean, it'd be almost one of those things where, I was a big man in basketball at 6'5", and I was always taught that hands to hands, over the head passing to somebody bigger, to try and just beat the press or whatever. That's what it seemed like. I wouldn't be surprised if Austin Mack just threw it like that. Just over his head, like nobody can block it.
He won't win the job.
But anyway, that is it.
Meadows size. Oh, no, there's a post today on BOL.
That's 14. That's about 14 feet of dude there. By the way.
Yeah, and Derek Meadows is like 6'6", which is a crazy height for a receiver. And I saw somebody today say, I'm not going to get excited about Derek Meadows because we've seen this with Jaleel Billingsley. We've seen this with Amari Knobloch. We've seen it with Caleb Odom. It just hasn't worked. But those guys were tight end prospects. All three of those guys were evaluated by experts at some level when they were high school players. And the expert said, these guys have a chance, but it's at tight end. No one has ever said that about Derek Meadows. No one has ever said, even though he's 6'6", no one has ever remotely suggested that he should be playing the tight end position. That makes him a radically different, not better, but a radically different type wide receiver prospect than Billingsley and Knobloch and Caleb Odom. Derek Meadows has what I would call legit wide receiver traits, and he'll never play tight end. He's going to be a receiver. Now, is his size, his height, his ability to separate? We'll see if he can pull all that off. But a lot of programs thought so. I mean, the programs that really wanted Derek Meadows, other than Alabama, were big-time successful programs who have success at wide receiver. For instance, like LSU, who wanted Derek Meadows really bad. LSU is a good candidate for wide receiver U, along with Ohio State and Alabama. You tend to agree with their wide receiver evals.
He was committed there.
Yep. And he almost went to Michigan.
I want to talk to you about Talkspace now. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. Communicate with your spouse or your family or your friends or whatever more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. And it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, which is just awesome. But look, as a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80, all one word, and 80 is just the number. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, promo code SPACE80. So Bama plays at 7:30. It's late for me. I'm going to go, but it's late. 7:30 on Saturday night against LSU. Alabama is like an 88% favorite to win that game, according to the ESPN Gamecast. Of course, that thing can be wrong. An 88% chance to win means you have a 12% chance to lose. LSU is a 12-6 ball club. They are 13th in the league right now. They already have losses to Pitt. They got a loss to SMU. They got losses to Vanderbilt at home, by the way, at Missouri, at Ole Miss, and at Texas A&M. Now, they did beat Arkansas at home 78-74, but that was probably the game where you saw Arkansas's soul leave its body, where like they had a lead and I thought they were going to win. And the next thing you know, they end up losing by 4, and you can tell – like, this just probably isn't going to work out for Arkansas this year. I said on an earlier podcast this week, like by the time Alabama gets to Arkansas on February 8th, they'll probably have their act together. I rescind that remark. I don't think they're getting their act together.
Yeah, they're that injury to Boogie Fland is going to really set them back as if they needed
Boogie or
Boogie?
Boogie. I said Boogie. You said Boogie.
Did I say Boogie? I meant Boogie.
Okay, God, I was like, geez, all right. Is that how you say Boogie?
Well, I wasn't planning on saying it, but I didn't know we would talk about Arkansas. But when you did, it came to mind that that's who they lost. So I probably should rehearse that before the episode.
Well, I mean, okay. I've never heard of Boogie Nights.
Boogie.
All right, but let's talk LSU.
Much dirtier than the Boogie Nights, by the way. Boogie Nights was, boy, don't watch that. Got to watch that with a priest. Go to confession. So yeah, LSU, a good team, but not great. This doesn't feel like a big game because Alabama's not playing Alabama's played so many big basketball games recently, and there'll be big ones coming up. But this doesn't feel like a big game. But to quote Gene Stallings, who had one of the great quotes of all time about games like this, you don't think this is a big game? Try losing it. And that a loss here would be devastating because you'd have to make it up somewhere else. There's no excuse for a team as good as Alabama at home to lose. This LSU team is not that Ole Miss team. They're not nearly as good as that Ole Miss team. So a loss would be devastating. For that reason alone, in my mind, it is a big game because a loss would mean so much. Alabama will be a double-digit type favorite, and they should win this game. And let's hope they work on some things that they need to work on because some challenging games are definitely ahead.
Well, and we hope Darian Reed will be back. He should be back. At least that's the scuttlebutt right now that he will be back. And that would be great. But you're right about making it up. Now, I go back to the football season when we lost to Vanderbilt, and I came on this very podcast, I think solo at the time, and said it's the worst loss in Bama history. I still stand by that. I stand by it. It was just a total catastrophe. Now, it ended up where Vandy was an okay team. I don't care. It cost Alabama so much. The thing was, they kind of made up for it by going to LSU and destroying them. And then they dropped the ball again against Oklahoma.
Right.
Now the Tennessee loss, I think, forgivable, but the Vandy and the Oklahoma losses and Michigan were all so terrible. But Michigan sort of after the fact, not worrying about it. In basketball, obviously, you play many more games, and losing, to Ole Miss at home, even if Ole Miss wasn't good this year, and they are, it wouldn't be like just a death nail. But when you lose, if you were to lose to Ole Miss at home and then lose to LSU at home, I mean, to get back on that one line, you got to really do some stuff. See, I mean, Alabama can lose to Auburn on the road. Nobody in the world will forgive that. We can lose Tennessee on the road. Nobody in the world will forgive that. You can't lose to LSU at home and still be a 1 seed because you still have those games to go, not to mention Florida at home, who's number 5 in the country, So this is a huge game. It's a monster game. It's a must-win game. And since we're not doing a pod before the game and we're not going to do a pod immediately after because we're both going to the game, we just wanted to remind everybody how important this game is and to please show up and buy the tickets on Game Time. And if we lose, then you can go to Talkspace and get all this out.
It is big because the loss. It's funny how we'll say something like, let's say before Alabama plays Auburn, we will act like and talk and we will mean it when we say this is the biggest game maybe in the history of the state of Alabama. But the fact of the matter is you lose to Auburn, not much has happened to you in terms of what's going to happen in March. Now, it's going to hurt you in terms of winning the SEC. It's going to kill Luke. It's going to kill a lot of people listening to the show. But that's more emotional. That's more emotional. In terms of hurting Alabama, in terms of seeding, in terms of how March is going to be, it really wouldn't mean a whole lot. You lose to LSU, and it's going to mean quite a bit because you're going to have to make up for that with a really difficult place to win and a really difficult team to beat. So in that way, it's kind of a bigger game than the games against Auburn. But I think we know what's going to get the most attention. And boy, that Auburn game's not too far off. The one in Tuscaloosa is coming up.
I don't even want to think about it.
3 weeks.
I don't even want to think about it. I'm not excited about it. I don't care where we play them. I don't ever enjoy it. It's not fun to me. I was thinking about this the other day. It's on a Saturday, and
it's gonna be.
I was like, it's like at 3:00. I'm like, should I go? And then I'm like, no, because most time I'll probably just spend hiding in the corridor, just like going, please get me out of here. Because every Auburn, anything that we do makes me miserable. Because when we win, I just feel relief, and when we lose, I got to call Talkspace and several other therapy people. So, all right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back Sunday with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.